Let's talk about something truly American. No, not crippling medical debt or the baffling persistence of daylight savings. Let's talk about Cracker Barrel. For millions, this isn't just a restaurant chain. It's a sacred institution. It's a place where you can buy a rocking chair and a full country breakfast at 7 in the evening. The allure of Cracker Barrel is a complex and beautiful thing. This deep emotional connection is the company's greatest asset. So let's examine the evidence. Exhibit A, the original Cracker Barrel logo. Side by side, old versus new. The words Cracker Barrel, Old Country Store are written in a rustic, slightly uneven, all caps font. This logo wasn't just a design, it was a promise. For decades, that logo has been a constant glowing beacon on interstate signs across the nation. It was the visual equivalent of a warm hug from a friendly grandparent. Every element of the brand experience was in harmony, reinforcing rustic authenticity. And so on, a seemingly ordinary day, the change came. It didn't arrive with a triumphant Super Bowl ad or a grand public unveiling. No, this was a quieter, more insidious kind of change. A digital sleight of hand. One moment, the familiar, comforting logo was there. The next, it was replaced. A press release, dense with corporate jargon, was posted, and across the internet from Facebook groups dedicated to finding the best fried chicken to the chaotic forums of Reddit. The digital equivalent of a record scratch was heard. The shockwaves weren't just ripples, they were a tsunami of confusion, anger, and a profound sense of betrayal. The new logo unveiled in this digital coupe was different, and by different, I mean alien. It felt cold, distant, and utterly disconnected from the warm, nostalgic feeling the brand had spent nearly half a century cultivating. It was as if you'd gone to visit your grandmother, only to find she'd replaced her cozy, handmade quilts with sterling, minimalist art from a Swedish furniture store. The soul of the place seemed to have been surgically removed, leaving behind a hollow corporate shell. The most immediate and jarring change was the typography. Gone was the iconic, rustic, all-caps font. That font wasn't just letters. It was a story. It spoke of hand-painted signs on country roads, of wood grain, of a time before everything was slick and optimized. In its place stood a generic, soulless, sans serif typeface. It's the kind of font you'd see on a new tech startup, a banking app, or a generic brand of sparkling water. It was clean, legible, and had absolutely nothing to say. All the charming imperfections that gave the original its character, the slightly uneven kerning, the textured edges that hinted at a branding iron on a wooden plank were meticulously smoothed over. Every curve was now a perfect, mathematically precise arc. This wasn't just a redesign, it was an exorcism of character, a deliberate flattening of personality in the name of a clean, sturdy, and ultimately forgettable modernity. It was a logo designed not to be loved, but to be ignored, to blend seemingly with the visual landscape of the digital age. And then there was the most heartbreaking change of all. The man was gone. The friendly figure in overalls, leaning casually on a barrel, a character based on a real person, Uncle Herschel, who embodied the brand's authentic, down-home spirit, was simply erased. He was the soul of the logo, the human connection, and the barrel he leaned on, that tangible symbol of country stores and aged goods, it was abstract into oblivion. The official explanation, buried in the press release, was predictable. The company spoke of a need to modernize, to streamline the brand's visual identity, and of course, to appeal to a new generation of guests. But reading between the lines of corporate speak reveals a much simpler, more primal motivation: fear. A deep-seated terror of being seen as old, dated, and ultimately becoming irrelevant in a rapidly changing market. The question they failed to ask was whether the new generation they were chasing even wanted a modernized Cracker Barrel, or if they were simply destroying the very authenticity that made them unique in the first place. The defenders of the change pointed to practicality. In the digital world, simplicity is king. A complex, detailed logo becomes an illegible smudge when shrunk down to a tiny app icon on your phone screen. A simpler, flatter design is scalable, versatile, and digitally native. And that's true. It is practical. But it's the kind of cold, ruthless practicality that would tear down a historic landmark to build a parking lot because it's more efficient. They made a logo that would look clean on an iPhone, but in doing so, they traded a soul for scalability. The public reaction was not subtle. It was swift. It was brutal. Social media platforms, particularly Facebook, erupted in righteous outrage. The company's official page was flooded with thousands of comments, almost none positive. The memes poured out, and boy, were they brutal. Petitions launched. Local news ran segments, it became a real-time case study in how not to rebrand. It felt like a slap in the face to loyal customers. They weren't just losing a logo, they felt like they were losing a piece of their culture. The volume and passion of the backlash were staggering. To understand the firestorm, it comes down to a simple concept: visual language. Every font, every color, every curve on a logo communicates something, just as powerfully as words on a page. We learn to read this language subconsciously from the moment we're born. It's the silent conversation brands have with us, shaping our perceptions and expectations. A sharp, minimalist font might say efficiency and technology, while a flowing script might whisper elegance and tradition. This isn't just a graphic design, it's a form of cultural communication. The old Cracker Barrel logo was fluent in the language of nostalgia. It spoke of warmth, tradition, and a steadfast reliability. This wasn't just a random font choice. It was a reflection of the company's soul. Born in 1969 with the vision of recreating an old-fashioned country store. The logo, with its rustic, almost hand-carved appearance, was a direct promise of that experience. The letters weren't perfectly aligned. The strokes had varying thickness, as if pressed into wood by an imperfect human hand. Those slight inconsistencies were its greatest strength. They gave the text a deeply human quality, an authenticity that can't be faked. In a world of pixelated, perfect digital precision, these flaws were a welcome sign of life. They created a sense of trust, suggesting that what you were about to experience was genuine, grounded, and made with care by people, not algorithms. It was a typographical equivalent of a handcrafted wooden rocking chair. You don't just see a rocking chair, you imagine the feeling of sitting in it. The gentle creak of the wood, the slow, easy rhythm, the comfort of a familiar place. The old logo evoked the same sensory promise. It wasn't just identifying a restaurant. It was inviting you to slow down, to come on in and rest a spell, to connect with a simpler time. It was a promise of homespun comfort, and for decades, the brand delivered on it. Then came the new logo. Suddenly, Cracker Barrel was speaking an entirely different language. It was the slick, sanitized dialect of Silicon Valley startups. Clean, efficient, geometric. The new font was a sans serif stripped of all the old character and warmth. This design philosophy is born from necessity. It's designed for maximum clarity on a tiny phone screen or as an app icon. It's scalable, modern, and digitally native, but Cracker Barrel's appeal was never about being digitally native. It was about being an analog escape from the digital world. This change created a massive cognitive dissonance for consumers. The term describes the profound mental discomfort we feel when our beliefs clash with new information. Here, the belief was that Cracker Barrel is a haven of tradition. The new information screened by the logo was that it became just another generic, modern corporation. The visual identity was now completely at war with the physical experience. For loyal customers, it felt like a betrayal. It was a visual breakup letter, a declaration that the brand they had a relationship with was changing into someone they didn't recognize. And so, people reacted with the confusion and anger of the recently jilted. This wasn't a simple critique of a font. It was a deeply emotional response to a perceived loss of identity. They were being forced to decode a new visual language, and they quickly identified it as alien to the Cracker Barrel they once loved and knew. The clean lines and perfect circles didn't say pancakes and rocking chairs. They said boardrooms and optimization. The company had misjudged the language their own brand spoke, and in doing so, inadvertently told their most loyal customers that the comforting, familiar world they cherished was a thing of the past. The logo disaster threw Cracker Barrel into a full-blown brand identity crisis. On one hand, you still have the physical restaurants. On the other hand, you have the company's new digital face, sleek, sturdy. This created a jarring disconnect for anyone interacting across platforms. This identity crisis revealed a misunderstanding within leadership about what the brand actually was. Cracker Barrel's uniqueness was its charm, the reason customers chose it over chain competitors. By trying to modernize, they risked sanding down what made them special. The business world is littered with brands that forgot who they were. Faced with an unprecedented digital rebellion, Cracker Barrel had to do something. The tide of negative sentiment was not receding. It was just growing stronger by the day. It responded. Official statements, carefully worded social media posts, interviews with executives. We've heard you, and we understand that our recent logo change has caused some concern. They admitted they could have handled the rollout better. They explained the rational need for digital versatility. Ultimately, Cracker Barrel walked back the change. The abstract logo was quietly retired. They went back to their roots. They re-emphasized the classic rustic logo in primary branding and on storefronts. So in the end, they listened to the customers. They listened to the fans. So the big problem, did this whole fiasco actually hurt the bottom line? In the short term, it's unlikely Cracker Barrel saw a massive sustained dip in sales directly attributable to the logo. The damage wasn't necessarily to immediate sales figures, but to the brand equity, an intangible long-term cost. Brand equity is the goodwill, the trust, and the emotional connection that makes people choose one company over another. The company had to spend time and resources on damage control that could have improved the actual guest experience. While the registers kept ringing, the controversy cost focus, money, and long-term brand health. Why do we form such strong attachments to corporate logos? A logo is a mental shortcut, a vessel for experiences, memories, and feelings. For Cracker Barrel, the old logo was a vessel for comfort, family, nostalgia, and reliability. When you smash that symbol, you smash the vessel of memories. It hurts. The new logo had no history, an empty container, aesthetically displeasing to its audience. We cling to these symbols because they provide consistency in a confusing world. To mess with them is to mess with people's sense of stability. So what are the lasting takeaways from the great Cracker Barrel logo disaster? In an era where brands often shed their character for sterile minimalism, this story is a powerful, cautionary tale. It's a masterclass in brand identity, customer loyalty, and the danger of forgetting who you are. The lessons are more relevant than ever. A roadmap for any brand tempted to trade its soul for a sleek but empty facade. First, know who you are, and know who your customers are. Cracker Barrel isn't just a restaurant. It's a cultural institution built on nostalgia. It's the promise of a home-cooked meal, the creak of a rocking chair, the joy of a peg game by a fire. Its identity is woven from Americana and comfort. Their customers aren't just buying breakfast, they're buying an experience, a refuge from the fast-paced world. They value authenticity and the feeling that some good things don't change. Second, listen before you leap. The gap between the company's vision and customer reality points to a failure in feedback. Internally, the new logo was likely praised for its clean lines and digital scalability. But did anyone ask if their core demographic wanted a digitally scalable experience? Simple focus groups would have revealed the deep emotional connection people had to the old quirky logo. The outrage wasn't just noise. It was the passionate feedback they failed to solicit. They designed in a corporate silo, an echo chamber where marketing logic drowned out the customer's voice. They dropped the impersonal symbol on an unsuspecting public, and for customers, it felt like a betrayal. It was as if the company was embarrassed by its own rustic charm. The new logo didn't say welcome home. It said we're rebranding and you're part of the past. It was a solution in search of a problem, executed without empathy. Third, character and complexity can be assets, not liabilities. The original Cracker Barrel logo is busy, detailed, and full of personality. In the world of minimalism, these are often seen as flaws. But for Cracker Barrel, they were features. That complexity communicated craftsmanship, a human touch, and a story. It looked like a sign that could have been hand-painted 100 years ago. The new logo, by contrast, was devoid of story, so generic it lost all its warmth. Ultimately, the saga forces every brand to ask a simple question before modernizing. Are you fixing something that was never broken? Is this change enhancing your core identity or erasing it? True innovation should build upon a brand's strengths, not apologize for them. Because at the end of the day, the lesson is simple. If your entire identity is built on rocking chairs and nostalgia, maybe don't make your logo look like it was designed by a robot.